Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ignite Your Soul Connection 2022, and we're talking about Let's Save Our Family. Can you believe it? This is day 6. I hope you've had an opportunity to visit with us for these past 6 days or the previous 5 days and now tonight. But if you haven't, we actually do record them and put them on YouTube so you can find any of the previous recordings on YouTube under the name of Ignite Your Soul Connection. And I invite you to go and listen. It's some really good information, and the coaches volunteer their time, they do their research, they come and share, and they share with an open heart. And so I want you to actually enjoy this as much as I do. Now tonight we're going to be talking about how we serve our community, and we're going to be listening to Dr. Sandra and Bree Randolph, and we're going to have some time where we really go deep into why it's so important for us to give up our gifts to each other. Okay? So if you don't have a pen and paper, I suggest you go and get one because you're going to wish that you did. All right. And remember, we are sharing this time period with you during the summer solstice. So happy summer solstice. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. All right. So now let me bring in the coaches. Let me introduce you to Dr. Sanja, and to Bree. And I'd like you to both come in and introduce yourself. We're going to start with you, Dr. Sandra. We usually start with the elder coaches first. Alanda said I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean.
I heard her last night. Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Dr. Sonji Jones-Manson. I am a Master Force Life Coach. I've been a life coach since 2015. I am very pleased to be here to talk about community service and serving your community. Professionally, my career has been marked through service to my community in Chicago. For over 23 years, I've worked with youth directly through nonprofit organizations and schools for the purposes of serving the community. It's what I was drawn to early on in my academic career. And I knew it's what I wanted to do in whatever capacity I worked. And so I've been very intentional about making sure that I service the youth in our communities. I'm coming to you from Virginia now as I continue to expand my service through the federal government. And so I'm very pleased to be here and have this conversation with you guys today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Okay, come on, Bree. How are you today? Tell us about yourself.
I am well. I am well. My name is Tabresha. My friends call me Breezy. Well, most people call me Breezy. Um, and I've been a Master Force coach just since January. So I'm really new. I'm
Yay!
really new. But I've been serving my community for about 15 years now. I started working in private schools and then went to the public school for a while and then got out on my own to support youth and families so I can get out of the box that some organizations put you in when you want to support every aspect of the child or the family. And I am a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 7. And so I want to ensure that I'm using my gifts and talents, not just for my children and family, but so they can go out into the world and have the same support that I want to give to children and families. And we can get back to what we consider the tribe, where if I see your child doing something, I can say something because it's coming from a place of love in our community, and I won't get any backlash from that.
Yeah, that is it. We live in a different world now, don't we? Because it used to be a time when anybody could, I don't care whose child it was. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
we saw that you were in danger, in need, or just out of whack, as they would say, you could
Yes.
step in and correct them and give them some instruction. So, I think we talked about we have to go back to the simple times when that was true.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So, and you've already started mentioning it, Bree. When we're talking about serving our community, what does that mean? What does it mean to serve our community? And see if you can step outside of just the work mode and what you are paid for, but in what other ways can people look to serve their community? Go ahead, Dr. Sandra. Let's start with you.
So when I think of the word community, I think of its origin, common unity. And I wanted to make sure that I also express that community does not necessarily mean simply geographic commonality.
Mm-hmm.
Your community could also mean, could be attributed to individual characteristics that you share with people. So it doesn't always have to be we all gather in the same geographic space, but it could be here's a group of folks that we have similarities with and we have a common unity with, no matter where they are physically or geographically. So community is how you define it. And so because that word stems from common unity, unity is the key. And I believe that serving your community means that you are moving in, you're being purposeful about moving in concert with the people around you, which means you're in tune with them, you're vibing with them. When they're up, you're aware. When they're down, you're aware, and not just aware of it, but you're moved to action to help and to support. And so if someone's celebrating, you're moved to celebrate with those in your community as well. When someone in your community is wounded, you're moved to support them in their wounding, whether that, even if that just means to be present and to listen. And so to me, that's what it means to serve your community. It means to be aware, to be empathetic, not sympathetic, but to be empathetic with those people that you consider a part of your community, and also to be willing to move into action based on what's going on and what's important in your community at that time.
That's wonderful. I love all of that. What would you add to that, Breezy?
Right, Dr. Sanji said it well.
Yeah, I know.
um, and it's just more like like she said, knowing the characteristics, but I like filling in the gaps. So in the places where they don't know where to find the resources, in the places where they may not have the etiquette or the skill set, I like to fill in those areas to support.
That's right. Providing what's needed. What's missing,
Yes.
that I can add? That's the question that I'm asking. What's missing that I can add? I don't want to have to do what everybody else is doing. What can I add that's not being added, right? That's part
Mhm.
of being aware and present. I love that you said that.
Yeah, I used to always say, see a need, fill a need, right? If
Mm-mm.
if if I'm able to, and it's not going to take anything away from me, why
Mm-hmm.
not?
Why
Right.
not? Yes, yes. What benefits do you personally derive from being of service?
It has helped me to be humble, to
Mm,
appreciate the things that I have, and to understand that even though I have what I have, it's still not what I have that makes me who I am.
wonderful.
Yes.
What would you say, Dr. Sandra?
Yeah, I used to, when I first started doing community service, I used to think, because I was taught that, you do it out of a space of altruism, right? There's,
Mm,
I don't believe in altruism. There's no such thing. You're always getting something back. You're
mm-hmm.
always getting something out of helping and support. Even if it's just, and for me, it's understanding that I'm being of benefit to someone else, but at the same time, I'm being enriched. So
Yes.
I've never felt like I was in a position where I'm pouring into someone or something. It's always felt like a reciprocal flow to me, because everybody in every community that I've worked with has always had something that I wanted or needed from them, whether it was some knowledge, some experience, or something that they were going to share with me, because there's always a perspective that I don't have. And the only reason that I'm able to have the perspective that I have now is because of those reciprocal relationships in all the communities that I've been a part of. It's not just because I've gained this wisdom and knowledge in and of myself because I read it somewhere. But no, it's because people share with me from all walks of life,
Yeah.
from all different spaces. And I was able to take it in and integrate it and understand it into my own understanding. And then what's beautiful about that is that I take what I've learned and add it to my stuff. And then the next encounter I have, I'm pouring out that person's stuff and my stuff into somebody that they may not have touched. And I think at exponential growth of experience and knowledge and wisdom that you get from being in community, that you then continue to pour out and share, and it's just you keep feeding this cycle. To me, that's the benefit of it. You keep learning and growing and learning and growing and learning and growing from all these folks with these different experiences and perspectives, and that's what's great for me.
Yes, yes. What would you add to that, Breezy?
And I like the idea because I was once told that one person can't make a difference. And I like to be the one person that does make a difference.
Yes. Yes, that's so wonderful. While you were talking, it reminded me of the 10 years that I lived in Lamar's, Iowa, where my family, we were one of the only black families that lived there. And I learned so much about community because people would just, hey, we have fresh eggs. Do you like eggs? Does your family? Yeah, sure. Bring me some eggs. Bring me some fruit and vegetables. Bring me, and that would start a conversation, but it would also open up, their home to me and my home to them. So it was a way to communicate and commune with one another. But then as I started hanging out more, I learned things about that community that I could enrich my own community with, because they weren't doing that same thing. Growing up in Chicago, you weren't necessarily taught to knock on people's door and say, hey, here's something for you. you know. Now down in the South, they do that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I love that because the community, it expands us when we give of ourselves, right? It
Yes.
expands us. So no matter how much we give, I tell people we can't outgive God. You can't outgive the universe.
Yes.
Yeah, so that
So,
reciprocity is going to come back to you. Even if it doesn't come back through someone, your heart and your capacity to love.
expands.
Oh my goodness, it's so
It does.
huge and fulfilling. So yeah, so both of you that was really good. Now, in serving our community, do we have to be paid to do that, to be of service?
In some aspects, I do need to get paid, but there's so much that you do that you don't get paid for. So there's no number to put on it. It's can I live? And so as long as I can live, then I'm going to give support. I'm going to keep doing.
Yes, and you're breaking up just a little bit, Breezy. Is that there you go. Okay. Yeah.
Is that better?
That sounds better. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're saying that in some capacity, because like if this is my job, my position, or whatever, even though I'm serving community, this is a part of what they pay me to do. But then there are
Yes.
other things that you do.
Yes.
Okay, Dr.
So
Chandra.
when I was
Oh,
working for Chicago Public. Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was working for Chicago Public Schools for a while on the west side, and every year I would adopt one or two children. And so it got to a place my children were saying to me, would you stop bringing children home with you? But that's where community didn't end for me. I wanted to ensure that every child, even my own children, were given a fair shake. And how can I do that? How can I support you in that process?
That's right. That's wonderful. Yes, yes.
And I agree, Bree. I believe it's both and. It doesn't have to be either or.
Mhm.
Um, I believe that when you're in true community, that you're going to want to compensate each other for your time, your talents, or your treasures, whatever it is that you're sharing.
Yeah.
And that's however your community agrees on compensation, right? Sometimes it can be monetarily, sometimes it can be in other ways. But true community values the gifts and the services of the other. And so what I found, because I've been in spaces where, you know, receiving pay may have been frowned upon, right? Because you do this from your heart, and I think that's fine. But at the same time, we should want to honor each other for when it's clear that someone is pouring out of themselves and out of their gifts in a way that may be above and beyond, what they needed to do. I'll give you a perfect example. When me and my husband were visiting in Chicago just recently, we ran into Moot unexpectedly at an event, right? This event was coming to a close and we were talking, and she sat us down, and right then and there, we were in a session. We were in a coaching session with Moot. We didn't necessarily ask for it, but she also didn't have to give it.
Right.
And so after that, of course, because Moot is a part of our community, we want to honor her talents that she poured out onto us, right? And that's what we did. But that's being a part of community. We can always take and not give back. But then I talked about that reciprocation, right? Mm-hmm. So true community is when it's reciprocal. So if you're in a community where someone is always giving, but they're not receiving, then the question is, are you in community? Right. Is that a community? What is this dynamic here? This dynamic is something different. But if it's a true community, then it should be reciprocated, and people's gifts, their times, their talents should be honored and should be acknowledged. Absolutely.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Bree? Did you have something else you were going to say to that?
No, I was saying, is that true unity? When she was sharing how community is that true unity?
Yes, I agree with that. And it was so interesting. It made me laugh when you brought that up, because when I saw you guys at the event, I was just filled with so much love and excitement, and to me it felt like you got to say this to them right here and now, because they can go back out of town.
But you said it though, Moo. It's like love is at the heart of true community. I know folks, in this social media age, everything is a community. We have this online community. We have this type of community, and the word is thrown around there. But true community, love is at the heart of it. And when someone is pouring out into you, the love that is at the core of that community is going to move you to want to honor whatever that person is pouring out. Anything else is a different type of dynamic. And then and it might not be a community, it might be a business relationship. And if that's what it is, then, let's talk about that conversation.
But you can just go right into talking about the difference between being of service and being a martyr, because sometimes this is what that situation falls into that you're talking about. We see a lot of people that, I was listening to a podcast recently, and someone spoke about how Rosa Parks, at the end of her life, she died lonely, couldn't pay her rent. There were some things, but see, I don't know if she considered herself a part of that community, right? So so what's the difference between being of service and being a martyr? And how do we slip into that, or stop from slipping into that?
Checking the ego. Why are you
say more about keep going on that one. Say more about
checking that ego, because the ego wants to be satisfied. So, look what I did over here. I saved these children. I fed this family. I created a well, whatever it is that someone may do. And it stops being about the love of why you're doing it or the people that you want to support. And it's about, what can I get for myself? How is that reflecting back on who I am, defining you through your ego, your lower self?
So you think that people that slip into martyrdom are probably more inside of wanting to be praised?
Yes.
I like that. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Dr. Sandra?
Yeah, wanting to be praised and wanting to be validated. And then when you're moving in that space, when you're serving, and I'm going to use these air quotes again, when you're serving in that space, your service is actually a form of manipulation. Yes. And it's not service. Yes. You're actually trying to manipulate others to see you in a certain way. And it is no longer service.
Keep going. I like that. Keep going.
Because and you can notice it. Like, Because when that person is not acknowledged, this is why for those of us who have been in the church, an event happens, you got to say everybody's name and acknowledge everybody. You skip somebody's feeling hurt. Why? Why are your feelings hurt?
Mm-hmm.
Why are your feelings hurt if you were doing this out of a point of service because your name wasn't called over the microphone? It doesn't make sense to me. That's because your motives. What are your motives? It's coming from that lower self, that ego self, as Bree mentioned, right? This is no longer about service. This is about my self-image, the narrative I've created about myself that I need other people to validate. And through my service, I'm going to manipulate you into validating that image that I've created of myself.
Yeah, so it's not serving from the heart at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the heart is
And
no.
that's why when you don't get that acknowledgement, you feel like a martyr, and you're martyring yourself.
Yeah, because most martyrs, the universe no longer supports martyrs. That's not a part of the paradigm anymore. You will be, and this is why we always teach you are the most important person in your universe, so you have to take care of yourself in order to be of service. You cannot serve and be dying at the same time. That is not appropriate. You know what I'm saying? You have to literally make sure that you are good through and through, as well as while you're taking care of other people. Otherwise, that does get into an ego thing. And then what are you looking for? People to come and take care of you? I just had to say that because sometimes sometimes you be like,
It needs to be said.
needs to be said. Can you please take care of yourself? Right.
Yes.
I hear people say all the time, the only time they take time off is when they get sick. And workaholic is a form of self-abuse. And there's some people, and I know that there are a lot of people, it's not just a learned way of being, but it is part of their destiny. You still have to make balance. You still have to
Yes.
create balance. You don't get a pass, right? So now, are you guys currently serving your community? Can you tell us some of the ways in which you're doing that now, and give us some little stories so that we can get into your world a little bit?
You want me to go?
Yeah, come on, Bree.
Okay.
You're the newbie. We
Um,
want to hear all the good stuff.
yes. So currently, I'm serving the community with mentoring groups with different organizations that work with Chicago Public Schools, working with middle schoolers. So I am teaching etiquette and self-regulation skills through Double Dutch.
Ooh, etiquette and self-regulation skills. I
Yes.
love that. So,
So
how do the children respond to that?
well, initially they were not too happy. What is this meditation thing? Why do you want us to write in these journals? Why are we doing all this stuff? And I said, because if you can get out everything that's bothering you, you make space for all the things you desire and you want. And it takes practice. And so with practicing with you, I get my practice too, because I may know a little bit more and I may be the expert in this situation, but you are the boss and the expert of yourself. And so teaching them those skills so they can use that when they're interacting with their peers.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yes.
And
And
so
I love watching children learn because when they're eager, they go home and teach their parents.
they do. Yes.
All right. What about you, Dr. Sandra?
So my approach to service is just it's embedded in the work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm working with in the department of the U.S. Department of Education that does research on innovations in education. And so one way I serve is that in every space that I'm in, I always bring the lens of equity for those at the local level of community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I move behind the scenes as an advocate of sorts, making sure that I'm always putting that lens on the table or to whatever program that we're working through and ensuring that everyone is being considered. everyone is being thought of as we create policies, as we create programs to serve, because the federal government is all about service. And so, we're public servants, but making sure that we're considering all aspects of the public. So that's currently the way that I'm serving. But I bring that into everything that I do. So I'm always looking at the underdog in the situation in whatever space I'm in. I'm always trying to figure out, even when I'm working in schools, like who's the kid that's not accessing this
Mm,
initiative, or who's the child that seems to be on the outskirts of this program. Who are we not touching? What about the dropouts? What about the ones who bowed out of the system and said that they don't want to play this game anymore? What are we doing to consider them? My dissertation research was about student voice, so I'm always about lifting up the voices of those who may not otherwise have a voice, and that's just the way I move. I've just always moved that way, and I've always advocated in that capacity. So that's how and that's a part of myself. I believe that's one of my gifts, and so I just bring that and insert that into everything I do. So I can't work in spaces where that's not welcome.
that's right. And if it's missing, you put it in.
Right.
Yes. And Breezy, the question was asked: are you doing anything away from the school? Are you doing anything this summer outside of the school where people can participate with you?
Well, I don't have anything on my agenda now for the summer. I'm still waiting for some contracts to come through, but I am putting together another clothing giveaway. So I have an organization, my Sisters Keeper Ministries, and we have food giveaways and clothing giveaways where we take donations and we go and serve the community and just give things away, give the clothes away and the food away on separate occasions. So other than that, I'm still building my coaching business and just supporting whoever needs support along the way.
Mm, wonderful, wonderful. And now, how would we actually, and you guys have children, how do you teach your children to be of service? Is that something that you're paying attention to and being mindful of as you parent nowadays?
Well, my children are young adults, but when they were in high school, service learning hours was one of the things that taught them part of the community service. So we would go into the shelters and help on different holidays with the food. On Thanksgiving, we'll go serve the food at the shelters, and so that was a way that I helped them to learn community and service. But it's something that seems like it's just natural for my children because even with my son, and I guess maybe just the way that I raised him, because if he sees someone who needs help, he's going to stop and help them. A
Mm-hmm.
lady had a flat tire and he got off his motorcycle and changed her tire for her. And so they just do things like that. So it's part of, I think they see me do it so much, it's just innate for them to do it as well.
Yes, yes, they put that in, right. What about you,
Yes.
Dr. Sandra?
Yeah, I think I agree with Bree. Like the service learning component, my children are my boys are young adults. I have four children. So they're 24, 22. Then I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old daughter. Um, and so when it comes to service, especially for my boys, because I was really working at the grassroots level of community when they were younger. And so I would take them with me. So whenever I was working a table at an event, they were there with me. If I was doing something at the school for after school program, they were there with me. So I included them as much as I could whenever I had to do things on Saturdays or Sundays, because that's the nature of that type of work. It's never, 5 days a week, 40 hours. It's always more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would involve them as well. But also, um, I learned as a child just by being a fly on the wall and listening to conversations and adults talking. And so I also allowed them to be a fly on the wall around conversations about what was going on in the community and what was needed. And so just allowing them to observe and to engage and to help age appropriately, help. And then we did the service learning thing when they were in school and requirements. And feeding folks at Thanksgiving through the church, and on Christmas Eve, we
Yes.
would be out passing out gifts at the shelters, with the church as well. And so connecting them to organizations that do that. And like your children, Bree, it's like I'm thinking about it now. I guess I've taken for granted the fact that of this type of exposure. Like I've never talked about it the way I'm talking about it right now. And I
Mhm.
think I've taken that exposure for granted because I've just been like, that's just the way they are. Like, like
Right.
they'll help somebody if they see someone needs help. But I realize as I'm, talking this out right now, that there's some things that I've done intentionally that I just thought I was doing it because I felt like I should do it.
Parenting.
And that's what I did. Like this is a good parent to expose them to conversations and to expose them to experiences. And I also want them to understand what was important to me. And so I felt like the way to do that was to let them be in the room, and so that they can hear and understand. And I'm always like, even when we observe things on the street, I'm always like, what do you think about what you just saw there? And we're like having these little conversations, but that's like intentional parenting. So I guess that's how it happened.
Yeah, because the question being asked is that do you believe that this type of service to community can be it that is it just embedded in you, or can you teach it, or do you just learn it through practice? Is it
I
just
think it's through practice as well.
okay?
And so with the children, seeing me doing it over and over and over and over again, they were able to develop a practice as well. So teaching it to the children, like the ones I work with at the school, so I see them twice a week. So every week we're going to do something to support someone else. So they're getting the practice over and over as well. And so after 32 weeks, then they should have it in a way that they can share it with someone else, or they can say to someone else, hey, maybe we should be more supportive to the teacher in the classroom versus throwing paper balls at her. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, right. So teaching them that.
yeah, I remember this was years ago when my older children, my children are grown too, right? When they were younger, but we would go, you know how they have the toy giveaway or something, and we would buy extra
Mm-hmm.
toys or things and wrap them, and write the name boy or girl and just give them to different organizations. We weren't with the church or anything. That was just a way of teaching them how to, because we weren't, we did the Kwanzaa thing. We weren't doing the Christmas thing so much, but we wanted to be inside of being generous, teaching them how to share. And then there was this one organization, we used to call it Karma Kitchen. I wish you guys were around for Karma Kitchen because we worked that for a few years. And on Sundays, once a month, we would invite people to come and eat and pay it forward. Or if you couldn't pay, we still wanted you to enjoy the food. And we would rent out a restaurant in downtown Chicago, and people would come and we would have entertainment. But I would take my youngest son and a couple of his friends, and they would have to wash the dishes. And when they first did it, I thought, oh my God, they're gonna be like, I gotta work. But they had so much fun. They were like, Miss Stewart, this was fun. Can we do it again? And then when they found out they could get community credit for it, that was even more fun. But I think about it a lot of times when we give our children opportunities to be exposed to things, they take that on because they get to feel that same thing that we feel when we're being of service. You know what I'm saying? And so I think a lot of children miss out because their parents aren't actively parenting the way that you are. You can you see that? Because we wonder why are these children so like this and this, and it's probably because somebody is not, making sure that they know what it's like to give, or they've been taught that you don't have anything to give.
Mm-hmm. It's that part. They've been
Yeah.
taught they don't have enough to share.
Say more
Hmm.
about that. Say more about that, because that's a yeah.
The mindset,
Mm.
the I don't want to seem negative, but the poverty mindset. So I only have enough for me. So how can I share with my neighbor or share with you? So then they go to school or they go into the community and they just want to take, and they're not thinking about how can I support someone else or even share with someone who may be less fortunate, like the man who's on the corner asking for change.
Hmm. I'm glad you mentioned that poverty mindset, because when we're operating from a space of scarcity, you that only breeds attitudes such as hoarding or
Hmm.
not enoughness.
Yes.
And not just in the material space, but not enoughness spiritually, not enoughness emotionally. I can't share with you emotionally because I'm in survival mode and I have to hoard anything that I'm able to get my hands on. And when common unity is built around a poverty mindset and a scarcity mindset, remember, community is going to be reciprocal, and it's going to reciprocate whatever the energy is that the
Hmm.
community is based upon. So when it's based upon scarcity and lack, you're going to give out that mindset and that energy, and you're going to get that back. And unfortunately, that community is going to be built around scarcity and lack. And so with intentionality, we have to begin to figure out how to infuse, how to dispel and break down that poverty mindset and that scarce energy, and how to infuse abundance and opulence and the attitude of abundance and opulence and limitlessness into the mindsets of community, of folks in some of the communities that we serve. And I think that's where, as coaches, when we talk about like how can we serve,
Mm-hmm.
that's one way that we can serve. And do we have to be, is that something we need to be paid to do all the time? Not necessarily, because I also believe that when you have, knowledge, so this is one of those spaces where it's like, if you have something to give it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have knowledge to share and give, like the same way that you're doing, Bree, with the kids, as simple as learning how to clear out space energetically through meditation, such a gift. Because when they're done with your program, in however many weeks that is, that's a skill they take with them for life.
For
Moot talks,
life, they'll
Moot
never
talks about how
forget
her
it.
son told her, I know how to rest and how to be still and how to
Hmm.
meditate and make space. That's because at a young age, Moot taught that to him.
Mm-hmm.
And now in his 40s, he's able to continue that practice. It doesn't have to be what we give to help shift energy and mindset. It doesn't have to be this big, sweeping gesture. It doesn't have to be this huge
That's right.
course. It's the small things that we do with those that are in our reach, in our vicinity, and teaching
Mm.
simple practices that we know are effective and that works to shift energy. And that's the way that we serve our community, so that when those that we're connected with and touching that way, they're going to take that back into their community,
That's right.
and
That's
then
right.
they're going to start sharing what they know and what they learn. I mean, that's how I learned.
Yes.
Somebody shared with me. I didn't know anything about meditation or being still or mindfulness,
That's right.
nothing about it. All I knew was survival and grind and hustle and go go go.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so because someone, when I was at my lowest,
Mm-hmm.
I was introduced through meditation through a therapist that I was seeing for depression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this Russian lady did my initial assessment, and she was like, this is what I'm gonna teach you how to meditate. I spent 9 sessions with her learning how to meditate.
That's right.
And that was the kickoff. And shortly after that, I met Mook
Mm-hmm.
and learned about Master Force. So for me, that was the kickoff, because I was at my lowest low.
Mm-hmm.
And someone showed me how to be still and make space within myself.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
And it took me to where I am now. And we can do the same thing.
For other people, and
Yeah.
you know, so when you're talking, what came up to me, do you all remember in the course where you had to uh, journal about the gifts of poverty? Do you remember that? Did you guys complete that assignment? You know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, that. But it reminded me of, I didn't know that I grew up in the poorest neighborhood in the country until I was in college and reading it in a sociology book. And I'm like, what? That's that's where I live. You know, and I'm like, huh? And you know, I'm thinking, and you know, they're studying my neighborhood, telling me about myself. And so it made me think, you know, did I think I was poor growing up there? I didn't have that conversation of being poor. Now there were times that I went without eating, but it was just times that I went without eating. Can you see that there was that you don't always associate not having something with being a certain way. You see that you don't have to create a mindset of poverty because you don't have anything. I had holes in my shoes a lot of times. But I didn't think about it as, oh, I'm poor. I'm still the kind of person that don't care about clothes and things. Most of my friends bring me the stuff that I wear because I don't like to shop.
Mhm.
But really that conversation can be shifted. It's not about how much money you have that makes you rich or poor. It really is about what you can share from what you do have. Knowledge, peace of mind, just sitting with someone. You know, all of those are gifts that you can just that doesn't take anything out of your pocket. It's sometimes money can get in the way of taking care of people,
Yeah.
including our children. We can overgive instead of having them just be present to themselves and being with us, you know?
Yeah. And I want to put an asterisk on that too, what you just said, Moot, because we also need to be careful that as we are sharing and giving and imparting, that we are not moving into, I don't know what the opposite of martyrdom would be, but moving into that space where we're trying to program and have people think the way that we feel they should think, or feel the way that we feel that they should feel about themselves
Yes.
in a space. True, again, true community is seeing people where they are for who they are,
Yes.
and seeing value in it right there in that spot.
I was talking to a group of women the other day who were of a different persuasion, and they kept using the term disadvantaged youth. And I said to them, I said, I want you to know over the years, I have coached people from many different backgrounds, racially, socioeconomically, and the money does not put you at a disadvantage. I mean, doesn't put you at an advantage.
Mhm.
People with money still are at a disadvantage if they are spiritually bankrupt. And a lot of that is what happens when you get to the point where you think that money is the answer, or power, or control. All of those rank inside of that. So I asked them, I said, can we use another word instead of disadvantage? And they were like, well, poor, or what do you? I said, how about under resourced? How about under resourced? Because that's what is causing some of the challenges going on. And there is a way to solve that problem.
And under resource puts the ownership on the structure and the system, not the individual, as
Yes.
disadvantage does.
Right. Right. Because you telling me that the color of my skin makes me disadvantaged for the rest of my life? No. No. Brilliance is brilliance in all colors. Okay. So it doesn't have to, application is a different thing. But, sometimes it's about if I can have the experience, maybe it's cost something, let's make sure they get that experience. Okay. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. Thank you for that asterisk. So, do you all know if you actually made a decision to be of service, or did you just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm. This is just me. I'm just serving." How did that show up for you? Was it by accident?
I think in high school, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to serve. I wasn't necessarily clear on, what that would look like or what it meant. I just knew I wanted to help others, particularly in my community. I grew up on the west side of Chicago. That's where I went to school, and I just always knew I wanted to help. I wanted to help Black folks. That's just what I knew, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. At first I was like, I'm gonna be a lawyer, then I'm gonna be a doctor, and I just went through all these different things. But I always knew that no matter what I did, I was going to be of service through helping in some sort of capacity in a meaningful way.
I can remember far back wanting to be a nurse because I wanted to help people. And so that was my idea. But I went to school for phlebotomy, and then I was a medical assistant. I was like, I don't like sticking people. I need to find another way because I knew that I still wanted to help people. And then after I started having children, I was like, oh, I really need to be helping people. And so I think I've always been service driven. I've always wanted to improve not only my condition, but the condition of the children who are, Black and brown, who seem to be what they consider, living in poverty. And so helping them to understand the mindset as well. So I think I've always wanted to serve.
Yeah, for me, it was a
I didn't,
response to injustice. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bree.
yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Say more
Yeah.
about that. A response to injustice.
So I just remember being very aware. Like I said, as a kid, I was always listening. And my family, when they got together, they talked about whatever was going on in current events. Whatever was happening to the Black community. So we're talking about, mostly in the 80s, right? So, Reaganomics was happening. There was a bunch of stuff happening in the 80s. Now I can look back and read over and understand. But I understood current events through the conversations of the adults at the gatherings, at the house barbecues, in the backyard get-togethers, and playing cards and talking about politics and current events. And it was clear to me, but from listening to those conversations, that some things just weren't fair. Some things just weren't right. And it didn't make sense to me why things had to be the way that they were. We watched Eyes on the Prize every February, So I was aware that, there were systemic injustices that were taking place that impacted the people that I knew personally. And then observing and watching what was going on in my community, at that time the gangs were, big, and, the drug epidemic was peaking in those years. And so observing it and watching what happened, while at the same time understanding that, Nancy Reagan is telling us to say no to drugs on, this is your brain, your brain on drugs commercial. So I'm seeing this stuff happening. They're talking about in school. We had the DARE program and all that stuff going on. So I knew that there was just some injustices. I just couldn't put my finger on it. So I knew I wanted to help respond to that. And I think that's why by the time I got to high school, I was like, I want to help Black people because there's some injustices going on around here. I need to respond.
Very cool.
I wasn't as aware of the injustices growing up. And it really wasn't until I started teaching in the private schools and I started working in different communities outside of our community that I saw, well, how are they getting all these resources? And why do they have new books? And why do they have music and gym? And why is their school? And it was, oh, yeah, something needs to be done because this is not balancing out. Our schools are overcrowded, our teachers are overworked, and over here they have all the resources to do everything they want to do, from horseback riding to swimming within their programs. And our children are even unaware of these things. So it really wasn't until I started teaching that I really saw the injustices.
Yeah,
You just reminded me, when I was in high school, we did this exchange program. So I went to Providence St. Mel. So I'm at a private school on the west side of Chicago.
Yes.
And we did this exchange with North Shore Country Day. And so some of those kids, I think I was a sophomore or junior, they came to Providence St. Mel and they shadowed us for a day. We were so proud. They were in our school, we were showing them around. And then it was our turn to go to North Shore Country Day. And I was completely floored with what I saw. They had 3 different types of biology classes. They had like a marine biology course. And I'm sitting in these classes and the room is not straight desk and chairs. They're like sitting in half circles and having conversations and they're learning. They had fresh fruit, apples and oranges that they could just take without paying for at lunch. Like all these little things. And the grounds, it was huge. It was beautiful, this campus, St. Mel, you get off on Madison Street, you walk up the street, Garfield Park, that's about it. And I left there feeling like, first of all, I felt behind
Yeah.
But then I was like, we're in the same city. And I remember I was like, where are we? Like, where are we in the city? Like, how far away did we go? Because this is a whole new world.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so grateful to our principal for giving us that experience, because he would always tell us about, we have to be globally competitive, right? We have to understand. He always wanted us to think globally, because in our bubble, we thought like we were the creme de la creme until we went across town and was like, ooh, we had a poor.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of stuff. But when I saw that gap, I was like, this, everybody should have this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I just wanted everybody to experience that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Because I was remembering a time in high school, and that might have been when that light switched on for me too. But I remember one of the cafeteria workers. She came to me, and she said, I was Rita Harris in high school. She said, Rita, she said, I need you. She said, we need to have free breakfast here at the school. And I'm thinking, okay. And she said, well, I need you to make sure that happens. And I'm thinking, well, what do you want me to do about that? I didn't know why she was coming to tell me that. She said, well, get a petition. She said, you have all the students sign this petition. And if you get all these petitions signed, they will have to give us free lunch, free breakfast. And I'm thinking, okay, that was easy enough. So I had the petition signed. Next thing you know, we getting free breakfast. But I wasn't thinking about it as a justice move or anything like that, right? It was just an opportunity for people to have breakfast in the morning, you know. But I can see that was part of the start of my understanding of influence, right? And I didn't have that word back then, but I can see now that it built inside of my leadership skills. But it was more, my service came from the understanding of leadership. Because I always tried to volunteer someplace too, but I was volunteering from, what can I learn here, right? And we had our visit to New Trier East. And girl, when we went to New Trier East from DuSable, I was done. I was like, can I transfer? Because, you know, I don't even know if they do those programs anymore. And I do know that when I left to go to college and I got off that plane in Sioux City and they had to drive me from Sioux City to Lamar's, Iowa, and I saw all of this land, all I could think of was, why do they keep saying that there's no room when all they have to do is take one of those projects and just plop it right here? that was
Plenty of
my,
space.
that was my naivete talking, right? But I couldn't understand it. There's plenty of room out here. Yeah, but it doesn't go like that, because then there's the whole culture shock conversation.
Mhm.
Right. Now, we've talked about service and being generous and just being uh, conscious, being present. That's what I hear what you're saying. When you're present that something needs to be done, you're conscious enough to say, what is it about me that I can give? But also, what structures do you put in place for yourself to make sure that you're not overextending yourselves, that you're taking care of what you need to take care of for you and your family? What structures do you put in place, and how do you help other people to see that they need to do that?
I'm still working on that. I have learned the power of no,
Yes.
and so I'm practicing my no's. And I feel a shift in me now when I know that I'm giving too much. My energy is off, and I'm paying attention to that. I used to just push it to the side for the sake of, let me support whoever I'm trying to support. But now is, how am I feeling about this? am I even supposed to be doing this? Am I trying to be a savior, or am I giving this message to the person?
Good
What
question.
am I doing? So, and I'm going into that self-reflection when I start to feel um, dis-ease towards the situation or the person.
That's a great question. Am I helping? Am I trying to be a savior? What is the point here? Right. Because we don't have to go to everybody to say, can you? That's not
Mhm.
good use of my time, is my favorite statement. What about you, Dr. Sanji?
And that just ditto to what Bree just shared, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and she started off the conversation just talking about being present and
Mm.
being mindful. And I love just the questioning yourself. And then she started off the conversation talking about that ego as well. You know,
Yes.
just because we all serve and we're coaches and we're aware that we're not flowing in this high energy all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? We're not like
Okay, Dr.
ascending.
Sanji. That's all I'm saying.
we 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 got highs and we got lows, and sometimes those lows can be lows. So we, you know, I can flow in and out of my lower self as well, and sometimes because it feels good to give, you know. Sometimes you get swept up and caught up in it, and the next thing you know, your body is telling you, hey, what about me? Or your spirit is trying to nudge you and say, hey, you're not paying attention to yourself right now. You're so
Mm-hmm.
busy trying to move from this, you know, help to save
Mm-hmm.
dynamic. You know, you got to watch that swing. It'll swing like a pendulum on you, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to check yourself. You have to do self checks, and that comes through a
Yes.
regular practice, daily practice of meditation, of breath work, regular practice of journaling, whatever rituals that you put in place for yourself. Like, you have to make time. And sometimes, if you're not careful, those will be the first things that start to slide. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a morning thing, like let's say your rituals in the morning, and now you got so much going on. Well, let me just get up in the morning. I'll do it when I get home, or I'll do something at lunch. I'll find 5-10 minutes of lunch, and then that doesn't happen because you're working through your lunch break, and then you get home and you're tired and you fall asleep. It starts slipping away, and so you have to be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Intentionality is my favorite word. You have to be intentional about taking care of yourself, because you cannot serve, as Rita said in the beginning of this conversation, if you are not taking care of yourself, which means you have to be present to yourself. And the only way to do that is through regular practice of being attentive, being present, mindful, self-care. Without it, you're gonna swing with that pendulum.
Yeah, and somebody be picking you up off the floor.
Hmm.
you know,
Yes.
what were you gonna say, Bree?
And I'm in total agreement. Yes, someone will be picking me up off the floor.
You know, and I remember in my earlier years, there wasn't a coaching community. You know, I didn't even know coaches, to be truthful. I was one of the people out there doing it and not, learning as I go, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the feeling that you were just mentioning, where it was like, wait a minute, nope, I can't take any more clients. And then I remember saying, okay, my client structure has to be 3 a day. One in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. Then it got down to, okay, my clients have to be one a day. you know, and it was I literally, because you get excited when you're helping people, right?
Yes.
You really do get excited, right? And so people want you, they need you, and then I had to start looking at, you only have so much energy in the day, right?
That
So then it started being, okay, well, I can't even take clients every day. I can only take clients, now I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Client wise, because Saturday, Sunday might be events or something, right? But it's one of those things where you don't want to burn out. We have watched, parents and relatives do so much, and then they get to a point in their life, where's the joy? Did they even have joy? Was there an experience of joy? All I grew up with was people that worked and worked and worked, and that's and then every now and then they would have a drink and have a party.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there's so much more adventure to experience. You know, there's travel, there's other things. What are your gifts that you really came here to share with the world? Some people aren't even getting to that because we've been taught, and especially as women, we've been taught to just give of yourself. And I'm saying that, yeah, we can be as generous as we want, but we have to start here. You know, we really have to start with ourselves. So I love what you were saying. You were giving some pointers there, Dr. Sanjay. You were saying you have to have your morning rituals, right? You have to. It's like nothing gets in the way of that, whatever that looks like. You know, and I was telling somebody the other day, I said, no, if a client says they have to have a morning appointment, then I'm just gonna have to get up an hour early because I'm still gonna have my hot water and my time with my plants and my Tai Chi. You know, I just need an hour for me. You know, now when I was younger with the family, I got up at 5 o'clock to make sure that I could do what I needed to do before everybody got up. You know, but that's that again, that self-care, that knowing that you have to be able to take care of yourself. I can't say that enough because we still have too many people falling, you know, sick before they can take care of themselves. And these are giving people. These are people who are of service. And I don't know about you, but when people know that you're generous, what are they going to do?
Keep asking.
Keep asking. They know you're going to say yes.
Yes.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so
And
we want to, yeah, go ahead.
and I was gonna say I don't think there's anything worse than being in a space where you know someone's supposed to be providing a service and they got an attitude. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, I believe that folks do have, are genuinely good, have good hearts, but they may not be taking care of themselves. They may be burnt out. And sometimes, it makes you sick in your physical body. It makes you sick in your emotional body or your spiritual body. And that's that energy that you give off. Because, I'm sure we've all experienced it. We've been somewhere where someone's supposed to be providing a service and you're like, why do you have this job? I don't think you like your job.
Yeah,
Yes.
that right. That goes to our next question. How do you know when you've given too much? That is a good, you probably shouldn't be here today. But for yourself, how do you know when you've given too much? How do you know when you've overgiven in certain situations?
Yeah, for me, I get short.
Mm.
I short and impatient, annoyed,
Impatient. Yes. No.
aggravated.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Everything just everything stinks to me. It's just
Yep. Yep.
it's it's and I feel that. And I feel that, but I had to learn that that's what was being signaled to me. I used to not interpret it as I'm not taking care of myself. I interpreted it as everything and everybody is out of order.
Okay.
Something is wrong out there. And it wasn't. It was
It
something
wasn't.
wrong with me.
That's right.
It's
What
just,
responsibility do you have?
yeah, they were just doing what they probably was doing all the time. It's just I had the capacity to deal with it. But when I ran out of capacity, I was like, ugh, everybody is, wrong out there in the world.
Right, right, right. What about you, Bree? When do you know you've overgiven or given too much?
You're muted, Bree.
You're muted or something.
It's very, very similar to what Dr. Sanji was saying. You become irritable. And I was going to share a story. I didn't do my morning routine, and I was just running around all day. I went straight to work, and I was short. I was short with the young ladies. And one young lady said, "So you've had a bad day today, huh?" I said, "Well, how do you know?" She said, "You're mean. You're short with us. You're not loving. We didn't do our meditation." She was like, "What's going on?" And I had to step back and go back and gather myself and then do the meditation and move on with the day because I didn't reflect and I wasn't paying attention to those cues that I am giving too much. I just ran all day. I didn't take a break from the morning errands to go into work. I went right in and everything was just off. And so I was out of alignment and I could feel it.
And it keeps spiraling too. Like,
And had that young lady not said anything, I probably would have kept going. So I'm thankful for that soft reminder from her, but it reminds me to make sure I'm doing what I need to do for myself first.
That's right. Yeah, you know, I think sometimes we get caught up in our own thought of being strong, you know,
Mhm.
like we're strong, so capable. But what
I am not strong or capable.
we don't have to be. That's what that my thing is. I don't have to do that. You know, it's like, well, no, I don't have to prove my strength. I don't prove that I can. I don't have to prove that I can do it. I told somebody, I say, listen, I tell the universe sometimes, listen, I'm gonna let the world fall down. I'm taking a break. You know, this is not my, that's not for me. That's not mine to take care of. You know, if it's something specific you need me to do in this situation, you'll have to tap me on my heart because I'm stepping back from. And I have to say that because there's so many things that people pull on you about, especially if they think you should have an opinion. I have to start telling people, listen, people pay me for my opinion, so most of the time I keep it to myself. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They said, well, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, I don't have to. I don't have to speak on everything." Does that make sense? So it's
It
like
does.
now that's putting out a lot. And I have a mentor that um, he's consistent about making sure that I know that you're too out there, mood. You too. I'm like, okay, okay, I'm pulling back. I'm pulling back. You know, and even when I think I'm pulling back, he's still saying you too. You know, and it's only inside of the conversation of self-preservation, right? Because if we're talking about longevity, which is what we need to be talking about, longevity, how long can I do what I'm doing? That means that we have to make sure that we're balanced in what we're doing on a regular basis. And we're not trying to deplete ourselves. I was coaching somebody the other day. I said, going fast, trying to be in a hurry is a sign of fear. I gotta get it done. No, you don't. Even when we leave this planet,
Right.
it is not going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So, in giving up our gifts, we have to make sure that we realize that what? We are to the gift. Not from the ego, but from the sense of what we're giving. Right? Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
it makes
It does.
perfectly good
Yes.
sense, Move. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and that's, and like you said, we're trained. Like, for those of us who like bought into, you know, the school system and the whole economic design of America, we buy into that. Go fast, go hard. You know,
Huh.
go big or go home and all of that stuff. So if you're not going fast or doing several things at one time, then you're operating from a deficit. That's the programming in our mind. And we get that message in so many different ways. But I love what you shared, Moot, when you talked about how you went through this process of saying, how many clients a day can you take? How many days a week can you work? Because you were being present to yourself and your capacity. And what I want to make sure that the listeners get from that too is that it evolves over time. It
Yeah.
doesn't stay the same because we change, we grow, we evolve over time. What we need
Yeah.
changes and evolves over time. And so at one point where you could have, sometimes what we do is we'll judge where we are based on something we used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say, oh, I remember when I could take 5 clients a day and now I can't, something must be wrong with me. No,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. It just means that where you are now on your journey is not a 5 client a day space.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a 3 day a week work and a 2 client a day space.
Mm-hmm.
And being comfortable with that evolution and with the changes that we go through because we're being present to ourselves and understanding what our capacity is. That is such an important skill to develop. And you have to develop and practice that. Like, even right now, I'm taking a sabbatical, you
Yeah.
know, as I'm doing this fellowship, but I'm taking a sabbatical from coaching. I'm taking a sabbatical from my consulting business, and I'm working intensely with my own personal coach so that I can work through and figure out some stuff. And as my sabbatical becomes to a close in the fall, I'm able to receive what I need so I can know how to move forward. But I've learned so much about rest during this
Yes.
time. I've learned so much, and not to judge rest. We judge rest as if it's a deficit or it means something's wrong. It absolutely does not. It actually means you're moving in flow when you're moving with the cycles of activity
That's
and
right.
rest. Like right now, we're celebrating summer solstice, but
Yep.
we're in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's the winter.
Yep.
And so while we're being energized by the sun, they're being moved to rest
That's right.
on the same planet,
Yep.
just different parts. And so honoring your cycle and being aware of your own internal cycle as well. Like for me personally, I know that even though this is summer solstice, my energetic and spiritual cycle is more aligned to that of the southern hemisphere. This is my personal winter. And I
Yes.
understand that about myself. But I had to learn that and not and I learned that from being in a space where I'm not judging rest and slowing down. So and if you're going to serve, like you have to be able to appreciate that too, because sometimes in service, it's not always about doing. Sometimes we have to serve by teaching the appreciation of rest and slowing down too. We don't
Mm.
always have to be active in marching and writing and petitioning. Sometimes we have to learn in service how to take a step back and plan and rest and
Yeah,
relax.
and then we also have to realize too that there is an energy, a capacity of energy in us that we can send out from us without being anywhere. Like literally, like we can connect, I'm sending energy to my children on a regular basis. If somebody's working with me and they're dealing with something, I'm sending them energy just because, you know what I'm saying? So we do have energy that emanate from us that we can send to a place without being there. That really is. I mean, you can. Who teaches this? There's several people that teach this. But really learning how to be still, you can't cultivate that energy until you do be still. If you're always trying to be someplace, it doesn't cultivate, right? Because you're burning yourself out. That energy is going someplace. Now, one of the questions that was asked is there accountability in service? Or another way of asking that is, what is the accountability in service?
I think Bree gave a great example of accountability in service. That young lady that
Oh,
gave her a gentle reminder,
she sure.
held her accountable.
Mm-hmm. What did she tell you? She said, "Why are you so mean today? You something wrong."
Hmm. I would like to see accountability amongst the adults that work in service, in community service more, where even if I'm not a part of their school community or their community where they live or wherever we're doing the work, that they're still ensuring that everyone is good and not just the people who they're familiar with.
Mm.
So I would like to see that, because when I do work to say, hey, maybe you need a few minutes to yourself, they're looking at me like, nah, I don't. And so they're not really understanding, and they're taking it in a negative way, but wanting to help the adults to understand that as well. So we can be accountable to each other, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
it does make sense, and it's something that probably would have to be taught first. Does that make sense? Because
It does.
again, we don't give ourselves permission to be still, to rest. Dr. Sandra said it. That real and think about it. I you know I see the women that have been in my presence, and they constantly going. Growing up, that's what I saw. They were always and then they constantly had us going. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And then if you were sitting down, do you remember what they said? You're lazy.
Yes.
So most of the time, Dr. Sante, I'm not judging it. We have to turn off that thing in our mind that says you shouldn't be sitting. You're lazy. You need to be doing something. No, you don't. You don't always have to need to be doing something. There needs to be there when I'm teaching time management, one of the things that we're talking about is structuring your downtime
Mhm.
in your calendar on a daily basis. Downtime, not where you have to be filling in. If your calendar has you doing something all the time, that's dangerous.
And I would also like to see adults accept what children have to say, not them being disrespectful,
Mm.
but maybe from the child comes a wise word
And
because it's not tainted.
oh yeah, children might, yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. I tell people I
Absolutely.
wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for my children.
Mhm.
They really did raise me.
Mhm,
I look
yes.
at them, I would not be here because I tell people all the time that the last time I tried to commit suicide, I was 30. And it was after that when I realized that I had to create my life because I didn't think I would live past 30.
Mhm.
And I had already been to college, been in corporate America, making good money, and still had no idea what being content was. And then I had to realize, I had to cultivate. I had to go inside myself. You can help all the people you want to, but if
Mhm.
you haven't cultivated that within yourself, you're going to miss it.
Mhm.
And so it was inside of my children, they really, my yeah, even today I have to tell them, can I be the mommy today? Because they, they, why'd you do this and so and so. So I said, I'm just telling you something, can you just
Right.
But another form of accountability that should be present in service is self accountability. And I think we've talked about that a lot, just in checking yourself, being present to yourself, being aware of yourself, being mindful, your rituals, your self care. That's a form of accountability. If you're going, anybody who is in service who does not have a method of caring for themselves need to take a sabbatical from service.
yeah,
You need to
and
stop serving immediately
yeah.
and begin to learn how to take care of yourself. And then be amazed at how much more impactful and deep your service will be once you get in tune with yourself.
And that's why we actually do teach the life quadrant. If you remember, that life quadrant is your check in. How are you feeling mentally? How are you
Mhm.
feeling emotionally? How are you doing physically? How are you doing spiritually? Most of the time, people just stay in the mental
Mhm.
and nobody ever gets to the spiritual. you know,
Yes.
you ask people, how you doing spiritual? What do you mean? I go to church?
Mhm.
No.
Mhm.
That has nothing to do with being grounded spiritually. And then a couple of weeks ago when they kept saying that the guy, you know, he shot up the school because he'd been bullied. I'm like, he didn't shoot up the school because he'd been bullied, because a lot of us every day, based on how we've been treated, could go and massacre somebody. And if you're giving him a pass on that, no, that's not why. He's not spiritually grounded. And they're trying not to use that word, spiritually grounded, but that's part of who we are. Our spiritual essence is really important for us to cultivate that, right? And that's part of our accountability too, if you ask me. Where are you spiritually? So as we come to the hour, I know we could talk more and more. And I just want to say that I am so grateful that you two chose this topic. You were perfect for the topic, and you gave us a lot of information. Bree, you this being your first time, thank you. You were wonderful.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
So, do you have anything going on? I heard you say you were on a sabbatical, so you're not taking clients. But just tell people how they can engage with you, Dr. Sandra. Just in case they just have questions or want to get some insights, or even you have projects going on that you might need some research from us.
So I am on a sabbatical. My sabbatical will come to a close this fall. And so what I'll be doing is I'll start servicing small groups. I'll be doing small group coaching, and I'll be coaching on a practice that I call flow mapping. And what flow mapping is a process that I've designed, that I've created to walk you through a process of creating a personalized visualization tool that you can use to get in touch with your truth and your authentic self through a process of intentionality.
That
And
sounds
so
beautiful.
think start your thinking at vision mapping, but then scrap the vision map and take it to a 3.0. So that's what flow mapping is. And I'm going to walk small groups of individuals through that process together. And so that's how I'll be engaging with clients through small groups. I've decided to not do individual coaching, but to move into small group coaching
Exactly.
as
Yes.
well around this particular topic. So if you're interested in flow mapping, if you want to figure out how to create your personalized visualization tool, your flow map, then you can reach me at Inside Job by Sonja. Sonji. My name is there on my screen. That's Inside Job by Sonja at gmail.com to get on the waiting list. And when that opens up, you'll be on the email list. You receive the email notifications about the small groups so that you can sign up for those as well.
That's
And if you're,
wonderful. That'll probably happen in the fall, you think?
yes, I'm going to launch it in the fall.
Okay.
So this is the time. So you want to go ahead and send that email to Inside Job by Sanja at Gmail. And if you're interested in following me, you can follow me at Inside Job by Sanja on Facebook and Instagram. And I also provide I also do tarot readings as well, and I just do that. I just enjoy doing for card readings, and so you can find me at Inside Job by Sanja on Etsy as well if you want to purchase a tarot reading from me.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Bree.
And so I am going to have a clothing giveaway in August, late August. So I'll be accepting donations and I will pick them up so I can be reached. You can inbox me or reach me through Facebook with Bree Randolph or at My Sister's Keeper Ministries on Facebook and Instagram.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I want to thank our listening audience for joining us this season. We've had a wonderful 6 night sharing with you. Hopefully, we've reached at least one person that can take this information to their family and make a difference. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the winter during the winter solstice. And if you've missed anything, you can find us on YouTube by the name Ignite Your Soul Connection. Until then, we ask you to keep mastering your life force, and we will see you soon. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Yes.